Modern witchcraft, marvelous powers attributed to witches in New Mexico. From the April 22, 1888 St. Louis Globe Democrat. Read by Frank Blissett. New Mexico, acquired by the United States in 1848 under the Treaty of Guadalupe Hidalgo, has a present population of about 175,000, including about 30,000 Indians and 25,000 Americans, as we use the term in the East. The rest are Mexicans, with a few fine old Spanish families scattered here and there. Among the native population, superstition is practically universal and has many strange manifestations. Despite the laudable efforts of our Pilgrim forefathers to exterminate the pestilent breed of witches, there are still witches and to spare in New Mexico, and the natives, almost to a man, believe in and fear them. They are generally women, but sometimes men, usually middle age, but occasionally very old, and rarely very young. It was my privilege the other day to photograph 3 live witches, the first, I venture to say, that ever faced a camera. They live in San Rafael. Our witchology is full, detailed, and graphic. Every paisano in New Mexico can tell you their strange habits, their marvelous powers, and their baleful deeds. They never injure the dumb animals, but woe to the human being who incurs their displeasure. Few indeed are bold enough to brave their wrath. If a witch asks for food, wood, clothing, or anything else, none dare say her nay. Nor dare anyone eat what a witch proffers, for if he do, some animal, alive and gnawing, will form in his stomach. By day the witches wear their familiar human form, but at night, dressed in strange animal shapes, they fly abroad to hold witch meetings in the mountains or to wreak their evil wills. In a dark night you may see them flying through the sky like so many balls of fire, and there are comparatively few Mexicans in the territory who have not seen this weird sight. For these nocturnal sallies, the witches wear their own bodies, but take the legs and eyes of a coyote or other animal, leaving their own at home. Juan Perea, a male witch who died here in San Mateo some months ago, met with a strange misfortune in this wise. He had gone off with the eyes of a cat, and during his absence a dog knocked over the table and ate up Juan's own eyes, so the unfortunate witch had to wear cat's eyes all the rest of his life. Before they can fly, witches are obliged to cry out, "Sin Dios, sin Santa Maria," without God and without the Holy Virgin, whereupon they mount up into the air without difficulty. If you are on good terms with a witch, you may persuade her to carry you on her back from here to New York in a second. She blindfolds you and enjoins strict silence. If you utter a word, you find yourself alone in some vast wilderness, and if you cry, "God save me!" you fall from a fearful height to the ground, but are luckily never killed by the fall. There are several courageous people in the territory who have made journeys thus upon the backs of witches. At least they are ready to swear so, and they find 10,000 believers to one skeptic. One striking peculiarity about New Mexico witches is that anyone named Juan or Juana, John or Jane, can catch them, and that no one else can except a priest with holy water. To catch a witch, one draws a 9-foot circle on the ground, turns his shirt inside out, and cries, "Venga, bruja!" "Come, witch!" Whereupon the witch has to fall inside the circle, and Juan has her completely in his power. This ability to catch witches, however, is seldom exercised, for let Juan once catch a witch, and all the other witches in the country join hands and whip him to death. And now, having briefly outlined the nature of witches here, let me give you some veracious anecdotes of their exploits, religiously believed throughout this section. Lorenzo Labate, a man of prominence in New Mexico, once unknowingly hired a witch as nurse for his baby. He lived in Las Vegas. Some months afterward there was a ball at Puerto de Luna, a couple of 100 miles south, and friends of the family were astonished to see the nurse and baby there. "Where is Señor Labate and his family?" they asked. The nurse replied that they were at a house a few miles distant, but too tired to come to the ball. The friends went there next day, and found the Labates had not been there. Suspecting the nurse to be a witch, they wrote to Don Lorenzo, who only knew that the nurse and baby were in his house when he went to bed, and there also when he woke up. It being plain, therefore, to the most casual observer that the woman was a witch, he promptly discharged her. A pretty girl at San Rafael, just married, had a quarrel with one of the witches there. That night a strange cat came into the room. Feeling sure it was a witch, she locked the door and window, and her husband came with his 6-shooter, but the cat melted into thin air before he could shoot. A little later an owl suddenly appeared, flew against Margarita's cheek and cut it, and then disappeared as mysteriously as the cat had done. A horrible sore formed on the cheek, and could not be cured till Margarita appeased the witch with presents. Jose Patricio Moreno, one of the most respected men in San Mateo, had a most unfortunate experience not long ago. There was then in town a witch named Marcelina, a thin, withered woman of perhaps 50 years. Moreno had the bad luck to offend her, and she retaliated by turning him into a woman. He was in this predicament for several months, as he is keen to swear, and recovered only by bribing the witch to restore him to masculinity. Marcelina found witchcraft an unhealthy profession, for last year 2 men whom she had bewitched caught her and beat her to death with clubs, right here in this pretty little village of San Mateo. Anything done to them? Well, hardly. That was Modern Witchcraft, Marvelous Powers Attributed to Witches in New Mexico, from the April 22, 1888 St. Louis Globe Democrat. Read by Frank Blissett.